Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Pie Show. This is episode 9. We're on season 3 now. So it's been a long journey. Here we are. This is my wife. This is Liz.
Hello, my name's Liz Iverson.
And I'm Phil Iverson, if you didn't already know that. And we are, for episode 9, this episode is all about love and quantum entanglement. And those are two very different things.
But mostly about love.
Yes, of course. So, part 1 is going to be about love. And me and Liz are going to discuss love and all the things about love. And then part 2...
Maybe not all of them. Maybe some of them.
Yeah. Things about love. And part 2, I'm going to be just one-on-one with you guys, talking about quantum entanglement. And then part 3, I'm going to talk to you guys about how those two things are, how those two have talking points that are interesting together. They're not really necessarily similar, but yeah, they're interesting. And that's what season 3 is really going to be all about, is like things that affect everybody, but they're intriguing points. So I'm so excited to bring you this episode and have my wife be a guest star. Yeah.
I'm a star.
Hello, viewers. This is a beautiful sunny day. We are out in nature, just soaking up the sun. We are here to talk to you today about love, and we are very much into it. We love the love. Love to love.
Yeah, we do.
Mm-hmm. So I think the first thing is we talk about, what love is. And it's a loaded question, what love is.
I don't think that we're going to be able to answer it.
Maybe not fully.
Not fully.
You kind of have to, you got to get your own idea of what it is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But this is our kind of perception of what love is.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Love is, it's a lot about, you got to care about somebody. To love someone, you have to respect them. And you got to want them to grow spiritually.
I think that love is having someone or something to push you towards a better potential. But then there's also, platonic love, where you have friends and family, that love you in a different way, and they help you, and push you in different ways. And then there's romantic love as well.
Yeah. Romantic love is a little different than platonic love. I would say that the majority of love that we feel in our life is platonic, and a much smaller proportion of the love that we feel is romantic. And romantic love it's a little bit closer. There's more physical realm. There's more of a physical realm to romantic love, and it can feel a lot more complicated. And I feel like part of learning more about romantic love is a little bit of trial and error. If you're careful with your romantic love, you'll learn about it well without getting really badly hurt. Yeah.
And I think that's also like a part of all love, is that there's joy and pain and frustration and anger and all the feelings.
Mm-hmm.
All the feelings are wrapped up in this big present and put with a bow on it, and that's essentially what love is. But it's about being patient with that and understanding that it's worth it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, in order to really love others, you do need to learn how to love yourself too. It's important to do that because, if you can't love yourself, you can't take care of yourself, you could cause the people that love you some traumatic experiences. So it's important to
love yourself as well, and just try to spread it as far as you can. And some people won't accept it, and you have to be willing to accept that yourself. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I know firsthand that loving yourself can be very difficult, but if and when you get there, let me know how you get there. Just kidding.
Yeah.
I think it's like a learning experience no matter what. You know, like you're constantly, just like in a relationship, you're constantly learning about things that, you may or may not want to learn about that particular person. And that goes the same with yourself. It's like we are ever changing, souls. Like we're constantly changing. We are a part of nature, and nature is always changing and molding itself, and trying to figure out how it can be more resilient. And I think that goes the same with us. Is like through our experiences and through like living vicariously through others as well. We kind of change, and learning how to love that person that you've changed into. Like I personally like really missed my 22-year-old self, but I'm never gonna go back to that person, because of the experiences that I have lived from that time to now. And I'm just in a different place in my life. And so now I'm at a point of relearning how to love myself again, I don't know if that makes sense.
You're doing great. Yeah.
I don't know.
I think, I would say to sum up, there's love is about respect, appreciation, care. It's very selfless. It's not just about yourself.
And Phil, like real quick, like also like to speak towards the care part is like it's not about like providing care for someone necessarily. Like there is that aspect. Like for an instance, like a child, right? Like ironically, Phil and I are bringing a child into this world. Yay!
Very exciting.
But like part of that care isn't just going to be feeding and clothing and putting a roof over their head. Another part of that care will be, pushing them, within reason, intellectually and emotionally and physically. And that's what makes us well-rounded humans, is that the amount of care that multiple people, the saying it takes a village to raise a child, like all of these multitudes of people have had different influences on your life, and they've all cared for you in a different sense, and they all have contributed to who you are, whether that was your kindergarten teacher or your college advisor or your significant other from 4 years ago. Like they all have contributed to who you are as a person. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, I'd like to say this much, Liz. I love you very much.
I love you.
Yeah, I really appreciate you being on my show with me.
You're welcome.
Yeah.
He really had to push.
Alright, everybody. So we are now on part 2 of this episode. We were talking about quantum entanglement. What I'm going to first talk about is just entanglement in general, and then we're going to try to focus on quantum entanglement. The differences between just general entanglement and quantum entanglement aren't gigantic, but there is a difference. And so entanglement comes from when you start with some object, well, probably a small object. We're talking about like particles or a group of particles that are once one, they get separated, and then they become entangled after they become separated. And so what this means is basically your particle that became two particles, this particle over here and this particle over here. One of them is going to have an upspin and the other one's going to have a downspin, and that's based off of an orientation that you would have decided, you know, when you separated them or whatever, or when they became separated. And what I mean by orientation is, you know, the X, Y, Z, you know, those graphs, those orientations just you know, set up that way in space. And so you look at the one being up and the one being down. The cool thing about entanglement is that you could separate these two particles. Let's say when you separate them, you put them in these identical boxes and then you shoot them across the universe. It could be, you know, wherever, you know, but they're not in the same spot. But they could be galaxies away from each other, basically. And if you have the capability to observe one of them in their box, so you look and you say, hey, this is particles looking up like this based on this orientation that I set up earlier, then that would tell you that the other particle, wherever it is, it would instantaneously tell you that that other particle has a downspin based off of that orientation. And so that's really what entanglement is all about, is that you have the ability to, when observing one particle, you gain information about the other particle. And so, and you know, this could be groups of particles as well that could be entangled. And so that's entertaining to me, because basically you can gain information at a massive distance instantaneously. And what is cool is, like, some people have had the idea, well, maybe this means you could have communication that would be faster than light. But from what I have been reading, and I am a little convinced now that that's not possible, and I was told it's not possible in the reading. I believe it's not possible. Maybe someday somebody could come up with some really elaborate technological advancement that would make that possible, but as far as I can tell, it doesn't seem like it makes sense that that would ever become possible. However, I find this stuff entertaining personally, and maybe you would too, and it goes to the quantum state as well. So what that means is, basically, if you have ever researched the double slit experiment, that's kind of where a lot of quantum mechanics first became a thing, and they are also involved in entanglement. So what that means is, instead of just knowing that two particles are entangled, so you observe one particle, and then you go to another particle and you observe that one. Well, then there is a given probability that after you observe this first particle, that other particle will be entangled. And so it's strange, because it's thought that you could look at one particle over here and it'll have an upspin like that, and then you look at the other particle, and then whatever spin it is, maybe it'll just shoot back to the, you know, downspin, so that they are entangled. And so that's what makes quantum entanglement so entertaining, is that there's a given probability that you could affect another particle's electron spin at massive distances. And so what is interesting about when you observe one particle is that the other entangled particle seems to just know whether or not you have observed the first particle as soon as you do. And so you know, people have tried to experiment with observing both particles at the same time, and that has been just very challenging, and it's pretty much impossible to do them at exactly the same time. And so there's always, you know, a first observed particle and then a second. And to me, I think that's very interesting, that when you observe one particle, the other particle is aware, or that may have an effect on the second particle that is entangled. And yeah, that's what entanglement is really all about. And from what I hear, from what I've read, it turns out that particles that were once entangled there's certain things that can happen that cause these particles to become no longer entangled. I'm not sure what those things are, but I've just read that that's possible. Alright everybody, so this is part 3. We are now discussing love and quantum entanglement, and how they are interesting talking points because they're not really similar. They're pretty different. Entanglement is, I like to think they're kind of opposite orders, right? Entanglement starts with one thing that breaks off into two or more, and then those things are entangled, whereas, love usually starts with two individuals that come together and form either a pair or a group. With romantic love, it's a couple or a, companion. And with friendship, with a group of people, it's just friendship. I like to think that with love, there are some things that kind of, if you study one person in a romantic relationship, you can learn things about the other person just by observing that person. Like, for instance, with me, you could look at me and you could say, hey, look, there's a ring on this guy's finger here, which, in our society, that is, a way that we say, hey, that guy's married. And so that would tell you that I'm married if you didn't already know, right? You've already seen my wife in this episode, but if you hadn't, you would at least know that I am married so that I'm, I have a companion for life. That much would be clear right away just by observing me. And in that sense, that's similar to entanglement, right? If you observe one particle, you learn something about the other one. And so that's one sort of interesting thing between the two. When it comes to entanglement, at least, and love, I like to think that everything in the universe technically is entangled. Like, for instance, if you believe in the Big Bang Theory, right, you believe that everything once came from one single, kind of blip, that everything was all once in that same one location, and then it exploded massively, huge explosion, and all of everything that we see today that is, technically separate, it was all once one thing. And so in that sense, it's kind of interesting to think that everything is entangled, but I really do believe that that is, in a sense, true. And I think that love kind of helps you focus on certain things like that. Like when you feel love for your friends, I feel like the more love you feel like for your friends or for someone who is a companion for you, the more you kind of start to feel entangled in that, like, you start to kind of get an idea of what's going on with that other person, even if you don't see them or you don't know what's going on with them. And it's not always true. It's not always true, but I mean, it's like, it's interesting because there are some times, and they seem kind of coincidental, sometimes you just happen to be thinking the same thing as someone you love, and they're thinking the same thing as you, obviously. And so that happens to me and my wife every now and then. And I've always noticed this growing up, that, the more you love someone, the more you spend time with someone, the more you just start to kind of become in sync with their mind and your mind. And I think in part that's because the more love you feel for someone, the more entangled you appear to be. And I think that in reality, when it comes to the universe as a whole, I really feel that everyone should just love each other. I don't understand why we wouldn't, really. I mean, I get that things happen in the world, and it's hard to forgive when accidents occur and whatnot, but love is such an important thing, and it just, everybody needs it. And entanglement, I mean, like I'm saying, we all came from the same thing, through the Big Bang, if you believe in the Big Bang. I personally believe in that, but I believe in other things as well, that don't necessarily conflict. It's just that the point is, love should be everywhere, and if it was, we would certainly feel more entangled. Like, for instance, like war, right? War really just comes from people who disagree a lot, and they really don't love each other. They want to end each other's lives and stuff. And you certainly don't feel entangled in that instance, which actually, ironically, you could kind of be entangled in that instance, because you would know, if you observe one group that are getting ready to go to war, you know that they're going to war with another group, You might even be able to find out why through just a couple, simple questions. I suppose the thing about love is that in order for it to exist, there has to be hardships, or there has to be things that you kind of push through together. Who knows if, I don't see how love could really exist if everyone individually could just survive on their own and they didn't need anybody else. There would really be no reason for love, I suppose. So in general, it may be impossible for the whole universe to just love everybody. Love everybody, everybody love everybody. But it's not necessarily true that that's the case. But entanglement, I don't think you can really escape the fact that in a sense we are all entangled. Because we all, we learn one thing about one person or one animal, and you kind of just learn a lot about every living thing when you do that. Every living thing, you look at it and it's got to breathe, it's got to eat, it's got to go to the bathroom, it's got to sleep. Just about everything has to do that, every living thing. And you study one living thing and you find that out. So in that sense, every living thing is kind of entangled. Then again, that does make differences between, living things and things that aren't necessarily considered alive. Yeah, no, it's true. Anyway, everybody, thank you for watching my episode. And I really do try to love everyone. I think it's important to try to do that because you feel more connected. I suppose connected may be the word I'm looking for as opposed to entangled, but I feel that entanglement and connectedness, I feel like entangled is kind of another word for connectedness. In reality, it's kind of like a more scientific word. It means something a little bit more specific than just connected, but I feel that obviously a connection is part of it. So anyway, love you viewers. Keep on viewing if you feel that you dig it. Alright everyone, well, thanks for watching the Iverson family ramble on about love and quantum entanglement. Leave me a comment if you feel like I'm just speaking nonsense the whole time, or if you feel like maybe you learned something. It's always nice to get some sort of reaction, so I learn from these videos. It's just wonderful. It's wonderful to be able to have the time to make these videos and share with the world a little bit. It's what I enjoy doing. So, and the next episode will be very interesting. I'm sure it'll be controversial one way or another. So check it out. I'm sure it'll be out in a few months.